friends, it is Jenna, what is up, and welcome back to the Board Game Garden, and welcome to the next video in the mechanics series here on the Board Game Garden, which, if you're not familiar, basically all of 2025, I've been going through my top mechanisms, so my top 12, one for each month, and I've been doing a top 10 video for each of those mechanisms alongside a focus for the community. So each month we focus on a different mechanism. Over on the Discord, we have a solo focus channel, so basically each month we all focus on a specific mechanism and we play a bunch of games with that specific mechanism. So yes, it's been a lot of fun thus far, and today we're going to be doing my top 10 favorite worker placement games, which this one proved to be very difficult because I feel like worker placement is one of those mechanisms that are in a ton of games, and most of the time it's just a very small part of the game, kind of similar to set collection. I've never really actually considered set collection to be a mechanism because I feel like it's just in so many games, and that is what worker placement is starting to be, where it's it's just a part of games, you know? Does that make sense? It's like having objectives or goals in games. It's just a part of so many games. But I did do a top 10, and I will do a little bit of a disclosure that this is specifically worker placement games where I felt like the worker placement aspect of the game was very unique and did something really cool. So you guys will notice that there are a few of some of my favorite games missing that are known for being worker placement games. So I do want to quickly let you guys know that Dune Imperium as well as Lost Ruins of Arnak did not include those in this list. Those are, up there with my favorite games because I really enjoy them. But I feel like those two games, the deck building aspect of that game and the partnership of the deck building and the worker placement stands out more than just the worker placement alone. Hopefully that makes sense. But I will be giving a few other kind of honorable mentions when we get into the video. But just know these are all games where I thought about worker placement in the game, and there was just something really unique about the worker placement in each of these. So we're going to get right into this video. I just wanted to disclose that at the start here. But if you guys are interested in hearing about my top 10 games with worker placement in them that I find very unique, then just keep on watching. Give this video a big thumb up. Be sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoy. Also, hit the subscribe button down below if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. We are this close to hitting 35,000 subscribers here in the garden, so definitely hit it if you haven't yet. I will say that I think it's about 45% of people that watch my videos are not subscribed, so do it if you haven't done it yet, please. We would love to have you here in the garden, like I say in all of my videos. But yeah, let's get into this video, shall we? Alright, so like I said, I do have a few honorable mentions that I wanted to list here at the beginning of the video. These are a few that just didn't quite make the list, and then also a few where I felt like the worker placement is really cool, but then there is some other aspects of the games that I feel like shine more than the worker placement. So first off, I wanted to mention Harvest. Harvest is a wonderful worker placement game. I absolutely love it. I will say that the worker placement aspect of the game doesn't shine a ton. It is a very basic worker placement game where you have your little wheelbarrows or your characters, and you're going to be placing them in different worker placement spots to gain the seeds and do all the things that you're going to be doing on your farm to build up the best farm, and then tend your crops and sell your crops for victory points and coins, so on and so forth. Absolutely love that game. I need to play it again in cozy season now because it is perfect. And there is also a new expansion called the Fall Festival expansion that I'm very, very excited to get to the table. So yeah, wanted to mention Harvest. Another one that I want to mention is Cities. This is a recent one of my favorites that I really enjoy playing. It doesn't have a solo mode, but I've really enjoyed it multiplayer. And I feel like the worker placement in Cities is really cool because it is kind of priority based or time based, because you're only going to be able to place a worker into the specific categories. There are 4 different kind of categories. There are the bigger city tiles, there's the buildings, there's the feature tiles, and then there are the goal cards. And you're going to have to kind of figure out which one of those things you're prioritizing each round, because once you've placed and taken one of those things, you can't place again in that row in order to take another one of those things. So you're trying to think like, oh, what would I want to prioritize out of these things that I want to grab before another player grabs the one that I want, and kind of the timing of which ones you're going to get first, which ones you're kind of going to leave for a little bit later in the round. So yes, cities is absolutely fantastic. The variability with the different cities that you can play with is awesome, and I've really enjoyed that one. And then the third one that I wanted to mention is Wondrous Creatures. This is a fantastic game. It's one of my current favorite games. I've just been really loving it. So prepare when I do my top 100 games of all time to see most likely Wondrous Creatures somewhere in there. But the worker placement in this game is really cool because you're placing out your kind of workers. They're like a bunch of different creatures, and they take up 2 hexagon spots, and based off of where you place that worker, you're going to be able to gain the resources / cards that are surrounding those spots. So I really enjoyed that part of it. But I do feel like the tableau building in Wondrous Creatures shines more for me than the worker placement. So expect to see that when I do my top 10 tableau building games, which might be in November or December, so there's the last 2 months of the year. But yes, Wondrous Creatures is fantastic and does use worker placement in a really cool way. And then lastly, one that I wanted to quickly mention is Tir na Nog. This one is such a cool game, and overall the gameplay of this one is very unique. The worker placement isn't like a huge part of the gameplay, but basically you are placing out in this like huge tableau of cards your workers in between 2 cards, and then once everybody has placed all of their workers out, I do think you have 3 workers or 2 workers. I can't remember. I think it is 2 workers. You're going to be placing those out. Once everyone has placed out their workers, you're going to go in turn order, and you're going to draft based off of where you place your workers. So you can take one of the 2 that are touching your specific workers. You're going to take back your worker. If people take from where your workers are touching before you actually take back your worker, and your worker has no cards surrounding it, you will then wait until the end of the round, and then you can draft any of the cards that are remaining in the kind of tableau, and then you are creating your own tableau of cards, these different rows that are going to be scoring in different ways based off of the scoring conditions that you have picked, because there's a bunch of different scoring cards that you're going to be using for the top, middle, and bottom row. Very fun game, super cool, but again, I do think that that one, the tableau building shines a little bit more than the worker placement. So prepare to see that in that video, the tableau building video as well. So yes, those are the honorable mentions that I wanted to mention. And then again, obviously, Dune Imperium and Lost Ruins of Arnak. Fantastic games, but the worker placement in those games I feel like doesn't shine as much as the deck building and just overall the gameplay in general. Alright, so getting into my top 10 favorite worker placement games, the first one that I wanted to talk about and my number 10 is Nova Roma. This game, I feel like this could also be higher up on the list if I've played it more. I think so far I've played Nova Roma twice solo and then about 3 times multiplayer, and I've enjoyed it both multiplayer and solo very, very much. And the worker placement in Nova Roma is so cool. It kind of reminds me a little bit of another game that is higher up on the list that you guys will hear about. But basically you're going to be placing workers into this grid, and the grid, there's going to be kind of actions at the top and the side, and based off of where you place your worker, that's going to kind of allow you to do the corresponding 2 actions that are that column's action and that row's action. And then as you place out more workers, the more workers that you have in that specific column and row is going to determine the strength of the action. And then based off of those actions, you're going to be doing a bunch of different things. There's like some mini games, which is starting to become one of my favorite mechanisms. I don't know if mini games is a mechanism, but there is, I think, another game on this list that also kind of features mini games that I really enjoyed. So yeah, it's very fun. I love that kind of mechanism of deciding where on that grid you want to place your workers in order to do 2 very specific actions. So cool. Yes, that is my number 10, Nova Roma. Number 9 is one that has such a cool way of getting your workers back. Basically, I'm just going to say it right now. The game is Fromage, and Fromage is really cool because it is a circular board where you're going to be placing out your workers to make cheese, and the way that you're going to be getting back your workers is each of the workers is going to be on a piece of cheese, and whatever way the cheese is pointing, it kind of creates an arrow. Once that cheese is then facing you again, because there's also, like, on top of the cheese, there's a worker. So once your worker is facing you, that is when you get that worker back. So it's this really cool, like, worker optimization puzzle where you're trying to make sure that you're placing out workers and that every turn you're going to be able to have at least one worker come back to you in order to be placed out, because you never want to place out all your workers and then one turn none of them come back, because then it's kind of a waste of a turn. So cool. Really love this game. Each round the board's gonna like turn. Very fun. Absolutely love Fromage. I haven't played it solo yet, and I really do need to get it to the table solo because I think it'd be very fun. But there's also additionally Fromaggio coming out very soon that I'm super excited about. That adds additional, again, mini games to the game. You have different quadrants on the board, and each of them are a little bit of a mini game where you're getting points in various ways based off of the cheese that you've placed there. And Fromaggio adds additional mini games. I think the mini games are like slightly more complex too, which I'm excited about. And yeah, super excited for that one. And overall, Fromage is a fantastic and really unique way of using worker placement. So that is why it is my number 9. Moving on to number 8. This one is a classic worker placement game, and I absolutely love this game. I do think that this game has dropped a little bit on my top 100 games of all time, but I still love it. It is a fantastic game, and it does use workers in a really cool way, and that is viticulture, which I've always loved the aesthetic and the theme of viticulture, where you own your own vineyard and you're creating wine and selling wine. It's kind of funny that sometimes people say that the best strategy for viticulture is just to not make wine, which is so funny, but I always try to, you know, make and sell wine because that just goes with the theme and we love it. So yeah, viticulture is fantastic. If you've never heard of viticulture, it is from Stonemaier Games, and it is a worker placement game where basically you have worker placement spots in summer and then winter, which in the expansion, which is the Tuscany expansion, it adds in spring and fall as well, which I prefer to play that way because I think it just adds a little bit more complexity and a bunch of different modules to the game, which I have really enjoyed. But basically each of the different seasons, you're going to be able to decide if you want to place workers in those seasons. If you do not want to place workers in that season, you can decide to pass, and then you are going to have to wait until everyone's finished with that season, and then you'll move to the next season, decide to place workers or not, and then go forward into all 4 of the seasons if you're playing with the expansion, and I have really enjoyed that. There is the viticulture rolled expansion, which is cool, which basically, I believe, I haven't played it in a while, but I think in that expansion, you actually have to train your workers in order to be able to be used in specific seasons. So they all have, you know, you have your summer workers and you have your winter workers, but then you can train them to be able to be used anywhere, and that you like put a little hat on them, which I think is cute. But yes, fantastic game. I really love viticulture. It's been one of my favorites for a long time, and that is why it is my number 8. Moving on to number 7. This is again very much so like Wondrous Creatures, one of my recent just like loves in board games, a recent obsession, and that is Explorers of Navoria. This game is so much fun. It is so pretty. I love the colors and the art in this game, and the worker placement in this game is very cool. Again, it combines both worker placement and tableau building, which I feel like worker placement and tableau building goes well together. Worker placement and deck building also goes well together. But yes, this one, you are drafting these different tiles or little tokens that are going to be specific colors. You can either take 2 out of the bag and choose one, placing the other one on the board, or you can just choose one of the ones that someone has discarded on the board. And depending on the color of that token, you are then going to be able to draft that specific colored card added into your tableau. Each of the cards kind of give you different things. Some of them give you some like income, some of them give you resources, some of them give you like end game objectives, different things like that. And then once everyone has finished with that kind of phase of the game and taking those different cards, based off of the tokens that people have used to take the cards, you are then going to use those tokens as workers in the worker placement aspect of the game. And I think that is so cool. So it's kind of like semi-cooperative in like the colors that are available for that round. And then in turn order, obviously you're going to be drafting those tokens. So they're kind of like public workers that you are drafting to then be able to place on specific spots on the map, which I think is really unique. So that is part of Explorers of Noboria that I've always loved. It also plays great solo if you have the Forgotten Lands expansion, and just overall I've been obsessed with Explorers of Noboria recently, so that is why it is my number 7. Moving on to number 6, this is one that is actually right behind me, and that is Evenfall. Evenfall is such a fantastic game. It is a game that I actually really want to play again. Maybe I can try to get my friends to play it this weekend, because I think my friend Steph mentioned that she wanted to play it as well. But Evenfall is a game all about having a witch coven, and you're going to have different workers, and a really cool part of this game is 2 different things. You're going to have both your witches and you're going to have your elders. Your witches are going to be able to be placed into your outer circle as well as onto these different locations in the middle of the table. And those locations actually double as both worker placement spots, and at the end of the round there's going to be a little bit of area majority based off of whoever has the most witches there, plus you can use like your mana as well. Whoever has the most control at each of these locations are going to get these specific little tokens that you're going to be placing onto your different locations in order to score them at the end of the game. So that's a really cool part of it. But then you also have your elders, which your elders are going to be workers that cannot be placed in your outer circle. They can only be placed in your inner circle. So you have like your outer and your inner circle, which are tableaus of cards again. So again, a worker placement tableau building game. But there is one of like the special abilities, because you can play this game asymmetrically with special abilities. There is one coven that can use their elders both in the outer circle and the inner circle, which I really like to use that coven because it's very helpful. But yeah, overall, Evenfall is absolutely fantastic. Again, a game that I want to play again, both multiplayer, and I really want to get it to the table solo. I might actually try to play Evenfall solo on Halloween. I think that would be very fun. But yes, that is my number 6, Evenfall. All right, moving into the top 5. These are some of my favorite games of all time. Some of these are games that were already in my top 100, but they have actually gone up in the like top 100. So when I make my top 100 next year, I feel like it's going to be very different from when it was before, which I think, because originally I was going to do another top 100 games of all time this year in 2025, because I did one last year in 2024, but I felt like there wasn't a ton of changes, so I kind of wanted to wait a year in between and maybe do my top 100 games of all time every other year instead of every year, so there's more changes within my top 100. So very excited to do that in 2026, because I feel like there's going to be some really cool changes there with all of the games that I've played and all of the games that I've played more, and so they have gone up. But moving into my number 5. My number 5 is Underwater Cities. This is such a fantastic game. I have really enjoyed this one. We've played it more recently because it is one of Francis's favorite games, and Francis really enjoys just playing games that he already knows and knows he loves. So we've gotten this one to the table quite a few times. And Underwater Cities, again, is worker placement as well as a little bit of tableau building as well. And the way that you're using workers and the cards in this game is really cool, because basically you have these workers, which are these like weird door things. I don't really know what the workers are. I've always wanted to get like upgraded components for the workers in Underwater Cities, and maybe get like submarines or something instead of the weird little tokens that they give you in the game. But yeah, basically there's going to be 3 different colors of worker placement spots. There's the red spots, yellow spots, and teal/green spots. And if you are able to place down a worker onto a colored spot that then you have a card that matches that color, you're going to be able to do both of them. So you can do the worker placement action and then play down the card and do that card's action. You can also do it in the other direction. So you could do the card action first, then the worker placement spot. But yeah, I really love that connection between the worker placement spots and the cards, because you're always trying to optimize that and making sure that you have cards that go along with the worker placement spots that you want to. Sometimes it just doesn't work out and you really need to do a worker placement spot that you don't have a card to play along with it, so sometimes you have to give that up, but I really love that part of the game. The rest of the game, there's a ton of stuff going on in Underwater Cities, so I'm not going to explain it, but absolutely love that. Absolutely love Underwater Cities, and that is why it is my number 5. Moving into my number 4, this is one that actually is, I believe, currently in my top 10 games of all time. I do think that this one has dropped down a little bit, just because there are a few games that I will mention after this that have jumped up a little bit as well, but my number 4 is Paladins of the West Kingdom. I still freaking love this game. It is so good. I need to play it again because I do feel like a lot of the times these like top games of all time, top specific mechanism games, it really does depend on like recency bias, which is just something that happens. And there's really nothing that you can do about that. Obviously, I'm gonna like a game more that I have more recently played and I've had good experiences with. If I haven't played a game in 2-3 years, then it is gonna drop down. It's just, you know, something that happens. So just keep that in mind. But Paladins of the West Kingdom is so fantastic. It has this really cool kind of action strength mechanism with the worker placement, where basically you have these 3 different tracks that you're going to be going up, and depending on the track strength of that specific color, so there is black, blue, and red, that's going to be the strength of the action that you're going to be performing based off of the worker placement spots you're going to. And the worker placement spots are, some of them are going to require more than 1 worker, some are going to require less, and you can actually like upgrade the different worker placement spots by taking these specific buildings, by doing other actions, placing those buildings onto where you would place a worker, and that kind of gives you a discount on the worker placement spots. So it's kind of upgrading those worker placement spots and making them easier to perform. But at the beginning of each round, you're going to get a specific amount of workers, and then you're going to be able to perform these different actions. And like I said, based off of those tracks, that is going to be the strength of the specific actions that you're performing. There's a bunch of different actions and they're all going to connect to different things in the game and get you victory points in different ways. Again, kind of a little bit like mini games in a way, with a little bit of tableau building too. There's definitely a theme here in this top 10, but yeah, overall, Paladins of the West Kingdom is fantastic. I don't think I've played Paladins solo as of yet. I might have actually played it solo, I don't remember, but it would be one that I would love to get back to the table, both multiplayer and solo eventually. So yes, Paladins of the West Kingdom, that is my number 4. Moving on to number 3, this is one that, again, I need to get this one to the table again because it's been a while, but the game is Barcelona. So this is from Board and Dice, and this is, I think, my favorite currently game from Danny Garcia, and it kind of has like sparked my love for his designs. So I've really enjoyed Barcelona. I also really enjoyed Arborea, and then he has some other new ones coming out that I'm so excited about. There's the Voynich puzzle, Coming of Age. I've also played Daitoshi, which I really enjoyed from him. Windmill Valley, I think he also designed as well, which I enjoyed. Not as much as the others, but I still really enjoyed that one as well. So yeah, overall, Danny Garcia makes some fantastic games, and Barcelona is my favorite one from him thus far, and it is such a fantastic game. And also, this is the one that I was talking about when I was talking about Nova Roma, where it has a similar mechanism where basically in Barcelona, you're going to be drafting 2 workers out of a bag. There are 3 different color workers. There's green, pink, and blue, if I'm not mistaken. And those 2 workers, you're going to stack one on top of one another. You can choose what order you put them in. And then you're going to be placing them in this big grid that are kind of like streets of Barcelona with buildings. And you're going to be placing it at an intersection. And based off of that intersection, it is going to point to, again, a column and a row that is going to allow you to do 2 different actions. And the actions that you're going to be doing are a bunch of different things. I'm not going to go into all of the different actions, but there are some different tracks that you're going up. And then if there is a specific kind of configuration of workers surrounding a building on all the intersections around that building, you're going to be able to then take those workers to pay for the building. You're going to be able to place a building in that area, and then that's going to be a building that is owned by you, and it's going to get you victory points. Such a cool game, so fantastic. Again, one that I need to get to the table again. I've played it both solo and multiplayer, if I'm not mistaken. I think I did play it solo at one point. It's been a very long time, but yeah. Barcelona is so fun, and I just love that mechanism of placing a worker and then, you know, wherever you place it kind of triggers off the action in the row and the action in the column. So yes, that is my number 3, Barcelona. Moving on to number 2. This game, oh my goodness. I've recently played this game again, and this game is so good. And it is a game that I feel like does not get enough attention and is one that more people need to play because it is fantastic. And the game that I'm talking about is Federation. Oh my gosh, I love Federation so much. And my most recent play of it this past weekend, I taught it, and the people around the table ended up really enjoying it as well. And it makes me really happy introducing a game to people and then they end up really enjoying it. But yes, this game is so cool, and specifically the worker placement in this game is so unique, and it really makes each worker placement action so important, because not only are you placing a worker down to do a specific action, you are also placing a worker down and paying attention to the, again, row and column of where you are placing that action. It doesn't determine the actions that you're doing, but it's going to determine both the voting, because you're placing a worker basically onto a spaceship, and the spaceship is broken up into 2 sides, and basically each side is going to get added up, and then based off of which side wins, that is going to specifically be a planet that is going to get scored that round. So it could be the yellow planet versus the blue planet, and then based off of the workers that you place on each side, you are kind of casting your vote for which one gets scored that round. And again, with the mini games, this game has mini games of all of these different colored planets, and then based off of where you place your worker, that's going to allow you to do an action at a specific planet. And then the power that you have at each of the planets is going to get scored in different ways. And then if you're able to get this track on each of the planets up enough, then those planets are going to be able to be scored at the end of the game. Whoever has the most power in each of the planets are going to get more victory points at the end of the game for that. But oh my goodness, this game has so much going on. It is quite a difficult one to teach because it has such a unique worker placement kind of mechanism with it. But again, just the way that the columns and the rows and the halves of the spaceship get scored just makes it so the worker placement is so important in the game, and really the whole game relies on that. And oh, just so good. Absolutely love it. Apologies if I did an awful job explaining it. But yeah, if you have not tried Federation yet, please give it a chance. It is such a fantastic game. So that is why it is my number 2. And I will also mention that this is literally a sci-fi themed game that I love. And if you've watched my channel before, I do not like sci-fi whatsoever. But there's just something about this game that I do not care about the theme. I will say that the colored planets are fun, but the overall sci-fi theme of it is just not something I love. So it really does say something about the gameplay that I like it so much. So Just saying. And then lastly, my #1 worker placement game. This is one that I've been playing more on BGA recently. I think within like the last 2 months I've played it in person, and I just love this game so much. And it's one that was in my top 100 games of all time, and I think since doing that it has jumped up quite a bit. And the game that I'm talking about, my #1 worker placement game, is Darwin's Journey. Oh my goodness. I love Darwin's Journey, and this I can potentially see getting up into my top 10 because it's one of those games very similar to like the Castles of Burgundy, which is my favorite game of all time, where I can really see myself just playing this over and over again to master the game. And I do think that I recently have discovered if a game can get me to do that, where I just want to play it over and over again to really master the strategy, I know that is going to be one of my favorite games. And it's just something that I really enjoy in games, where I know that I can like do that, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, it's very similar with like Seven Wonders as well. That's one that I just want to play over and over again to master the strategies. So yes, Darwin's Journey is fantastic. The worker placement in this game is not like crazy different. Basically, there are 4 kind of main actions that you're going to be placing your workers onto. There is the explore action, where you're going to be walking onto these islands and going to different spots and discovering these different species that you're then going to be able to take to the museum in order to gain knowledge as well as money. And then there's also the boat that you're having to keep up with the like AI boat, and if you don't, you lose victory points for that. And then there's also the like envelope spot. We're going to be able to place envelopes onto these 3 different areas, which at the end of the round, it's going to be whoever has the most will be able to then do an additional action, but then they lose their stamps for the next round. Or half of their stamps rounded up, I think, or something like that. And then the last worker placement spot is where you're going to be able to gain these different seals, which this is a part of the game that I absolutely love. And this kind of reminds me a little bit of the dice worker placement in Wayfarers of the South Tigris, which is again another one of my favorite games, where basically you're going to be able to kind of upgrade your workers. In Wayfarers, you are upgrading what each die face is going to be able to do, where in Darwin's Journey, you're going to be able to upgrade what each of your workers are going to be able to do based off of the seal colors that you're going to place on them, because the workers that you place out are only going to be able to go onto some of these specific worker placement spots that I just mentioned if they have that colored seal. So you're only going to be able to place out a worker onto the green worker placement spot, which is the exploration worker placement spot, if you have a green seal. The more green seals that you have, the stronger the worker placement spot is going to be, the stronger the action of that specific worker placement spot will be. So yes, absolutely love that, because I love being able to configure my workers in a specific way to go along with the strategy that I'm going for. Also, you have these cards that if you're able to get a specific configuration of these seals on the worker, you'll be able to flip over that card and then gain a special action for that worker. So you're working towards that as well, which I will say with that part of the game with the different cards, you're not going to be able to do all of them. I've tried before. You have 3 of them. I think the most that I've been able to do is 2. If you're able to do all 3 of them, good for you, but that is very difficult. But yes, overall, Darwin's Journey is such a fantastic game. They did recently do a Kickstarter. Not super recently, actually. It's been a while, but I think it's going to be fulfilling soon, and I really do want to get my hands on the new version of Darwin's Journey. I'll place a picture up here. I don't remember what it's called. It's like the Oceana? Darwin's Journey. I don't think it's Oceana. I forget what it's called, but you guys will see it here. But yes, Darwin's Journey is absolutely fantastic. It has definitely jumped up on my favorite games, and it is currently my favorite game with worker placement. So yes, that is my #1. All right, friends, so that is going to be everything for today's video. Those are my top 10 worker placement games, specifically worker placement games that really feature worker placement in a cool way and a different way, and is like a really big part of the game and what makes the game shine. Hopefully that makes sense, but they are truly some of my favorite worker placement games. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, please give this video a big thumbs up. Also, hit that subscribe button down below if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. Comment down below some of your favorite worker placement games. I would love to chat about that down in the comments section. Let me know if there's any that I need to try that I didn't include on this list. I might have already tried them and I just don't like them, which apologies, but yeah, let me know down in the comments some of your favorites and I'll be sure to check them out if I haven't played them yet. And yeah, I love you guys so much. Remember, you are somebody's reason to smile, and I will see you in the next board game video. Bye, friends!